Okay, guys, welcome to Algebra 2A, and we are getting ready to start our 2-5 to 2-9 practice quiz. I suggest that you get some paper because I'm going to be giving you more notes than what's on your actual quiz review. So I want to make sure that you have everything you need when you take this quiz. Okay, so number one, we are graphing inequalities. So before I get into graphing inequalities, let's go over a few rules. So graphing inequalities. All right, so the first thing we have to remember are boundary lines. Okay, so when we have greater than or less than, those are our dashed lines. And when we have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, these are our solid lines. All right. So, and the last part of graphing inequalities is the shading. And we're going to use test points to shade, okay? So this is just a quick review for our graphing inequalities. So number one is y is greater than 3 over 4x minus 2. So hopefully you have the review right next to you as we're doing this. Okay, so our y-intercept or our b value is -2. And 3 over 4 is our slope. Okay, this is how we move. So we're going to rise over run, and we're going to start at the b value, which is 0, -2. So if I have my graph, I'm just going to make a grid right here for you. I'm going to begin at -2 on the y-axis, so which is right here. From this point, I am going to rise 3 and run 4. So 1, 2, 3, run 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where my new point is. My inequality is greater than, so I'm just going to have a dashed line coming through. So what we have to do is determine where we're shading. So we're going to use the test point 0, 0. So we're going to plug in 0, 0 into our inequality. So we have y is greater than 3 over 4x minus 2. So I'm going to plug in 0, 0. So 0 for y and 0 for x. All right, and so I have 0 is greater than -2, which is true. That's a true statement. So therefore, I'm going to shade on the side that has 0, 0. So I'm going to shade actually above the graph. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we are still graphing inequalities, but we are going to be using intercepts. So number two, the problem is 16x plus 8y is greater than -32. All right. So remember in class, I usually say when we're graphing intercepts, separate x and y. And then we're going to solve them. And after we solve, because we have an inequality, we can graph, and then we're going to shade. And we're going to shade based off of our test point 0, 0. Okay, so let's just do that. Let's separate x and y. So I have 16x is equal to negative 32, and I have 8y is equal to negative 32. So that's what I mean when I say separate x and y. We're just going to solve these one-step equations. So we're going to divide both sides for x by 16. And we have x is equal to negative 2. That point is going to be negative 2, 0. For y, I'm going to divide both sides by 8. I get y is equal to negative 4. And then that point is 0, negative 4. So again, I'm going to draw my graph. Give me some little tick marks. Okay, so my first point that I'm going to graph is on the x-axis. So that's at negative 2, 0. That's right here. My second point is at 0, negative 4. So that's about right here. Again, I'm going to look at my inequality symbol to determine if I have a solid line or a dashed line. So because it's just greater than, that gives me another dashed line right through those 2 points. So now I have to determine whether I'm shading above the line or below the line. So all I'm going to do is plug in my test point 0, 0 into my original inequality. So I have 16x plus 8y is greater than negative 32. So I'm just going to plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. 16 times 0 plus 8 times 0 is greater than negative 32. And we have 0 is greater than negative 32, which is a true statement. So again, I'm going to shade on the side that has 0, 0 in it. Okay, so that is number 2. Number 3, hopefully you have your paper in front of you, because I'm not going to write the whole problem out. But number 3, we're dealing with temperatures in Alaska. So what we're going to do, this is when you're going to use your calculator, because we need to find the correlation coefficient and we need to find its equation, so the best line. So really quick on this review, I am just going to write some of the steps that you need to use in your calculator. So we're going to go to Stat, and then Edit. And then we're going to enter information into L1 and L2. So in L1 is going to be our X values. L2 is going to be our Y values. So after I input that data, because we're looking for a line, I am going to hit Stat again. I'm going to move over to Calc. And then I'm going to choose Linear Regression, or LinReg, which is number 4. Okay, and that's going to give me everything I need. So when using your calculator, hopefully you can press that information, and I'm going to input my information into the calculator. Unfortunately, you're not able to see it, but for number 3, my L1 is going to be data from Anchorage. You also want to make sure that your mode is on so that your stat diagnostics are on. So what we're going to do, stat edit, so L1, I'm going to put all of my Anchorage data in there. So that's 15, 19, 26, 26, 47, 54, 58, 56, 48, 35, 21, and 16. That's going in L1. And then in L2, I have 44, 47, 56, 63, 71, 78, 81, 80, 75, 64, 55, and 47. Then I'm going to hit Stat, move over to Calc, and option 4. And I have Y is equal to AX plus B. So it says my A is 0.8024. My B is 35.26. And my R value is 0.9783. So what I need is to actually write the equation of the line. So we have Y is equal to 0.80x plus 35.26, and my R value is 0.97 or approximately 0.98. So that means it's really close to a line. We're going to do the exact same thing for number 4 as well. Okay, so you're just going to have to input the data into L1 and L2. So for number 4, our data, we're talking about forearm length in regards to body height. So your forearm length is going to be our L1. And L2 is going to be our body height. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. So you're going to repeat the steps for number 3. Okay. And after you get that information, so here I'm going to go stat edit again. I wish you could see it, but you've done this before. So you can place it in your calculator. So in L1, I'm going to put 24, 27, 24, 26, 32, 30, 29, 28. And then in L2, I'm going to put the body height as 157, 177, 164, 175, 195, 178, 180, and 172. And I hit Stat, move over to Calc, and remember we're going to do a linear regression. And I have my A is 3.643. My B is 74.26. 0.571, and my R value is 0.9130. All right, so the best fit equation for this line is going to be y equals 3.64x plus 74.57, and my R value, which is my correlation to show that it's close to a line, is 0.9130. All right, number 5. So number 5, they just want us to estimate our R value. And so you have to remember that our R value ranges from -1 to +1. All right, the closer it is to -1, that's going to mean we have a negative slope. And the closer it is to +1, we have a positive slope. Or a positive correlation. So let me see, I said negative slope. I'm going to write correlation. Or a positive correlation. And the closer it is to 0, that means we have no correlation. That's your data is just scattered all over. So for number 5, we have data looks similar to this. So if I'm looking at that, that's telling me that I have positive correlation. And my R value is close to +1. Because if you look, it looks like my data is trending upward. All right, number 6. Number 6, we're getting into solving for our compound inequalities. We took a lot of notes on that. That's when Mr. Habrack was doing his dance and an OR dance. So hopefully we can remember some of those things and statements. We shade together. Or statements, we shade apart. And so we're going to start this one off. We are on section 2 dash, I'm going to say this is 2.7 right now. I'm going to say this is 2.7. I could be wrong. But let's look at number, what number are we on? 6. So number 6, we have a compound inequality, and it is s minus 2 is less than -10, and it tells us or, so we know what kind of statement we're having, -3s is less than or equal to 6. So we have to solve both inequalities, which makes it compound. So to get s by itself, we're just going to add 2 to both sides of that inequality, and we have s is less than -8, or we're going to divide both sides by -3, but this is where I need you to pay attention. When we divide by a negative, our inequality sign has to flip. So that becomes S is greater than or equal to -2. So what we're going to do now is just graph our number line. So I have -8 and I have -2. At -8, I have an open circle. At -2, I have a closed circle. And because it's an OR statement, I am going to shade the opposite way. Sorry, my arrows are off. Okay, so that's number 6. And we are going to pause, and then I'm going to see you in the next session for the other half of the video.